plasma-rich platelets
Oh,
or
did you like that?
platelet-rich plasma. Yeah, and I go like every 6 months, and the hair's growing back fuller, man.
Really?
It's
Okay.
growing full. I just got like a little bit of like some thinning in the back, but it's compared to what it was, amazing, man. God
Ah.
bless Mexico.
See, I heard that the place to go to, and I had it done in India. I heard the place to go to is Turkey.
For sure. I'm sure there's better places, but Mexico's just so close. It's like 30
No,
minutes from me.
yeah, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you. I thought that was interesting. I wonder if a lot of people do PRP. There are too many sham artists in that world. Is my
Yeah.
problem with it.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta know, you gotta trust who you're going to, and I mean, just
Someone
like an attorney.
exactly like that. My bigger problem ends up being how do you like? I saw someone doing plant stem cells. I'm like, what the hell is that supposed to do? You're
For
just going to reject
agriculture?
it? No, for hair growth.
Ah, okay. Yeah, they do like different things for that. But Merry Christmas to
Merry
everyone, by
Christmas.
the way. Happy holidays for
Happy
those that
Hanukkah.
don't celebrate. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy
Happy
Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa.
And
Um,
Festivus for the rest of us.
Festivus. I like that, man.
You've never heard of Festivus?
No, I know I know I've heard of it. I haven't heard of that term. Festivus for the rest of us. It's like a rap bar.
So that
Or
do you know
Sean
where it
with the
came from?
rap.
Do you know where Festivus came from?
Wasn't it a pagan holiday?
No, I don't think it was. It was actually so the real origins from what I gather is on Seinfeld apparently was doing an episode and one of his depressed writers was like, we had to celebrate Festivus. He's like, what the hell's Festivus? And the guy goes, my father would have a event where we all had to air our grievances and we had a poll that we would beat up like that be essentially you would like all these horrible things and was based off this 1960s thing his father had basically created and
So
it's
it's
like
a
the
man-made.
anti-consumer.
I know
Yeah.
there's like a pagan holiday that goes way back centuries to there were supposedly Christmas like kind of was built uh, around that. Um, but maybe that was winter solstice. I don't know.
No, you
I'm
might be
not
thinking of the
pagan enough.
solstice. Here, can you? Oh, you can't share the screen yet,
We
can
can
you?
share. Yeah.
No,
How
zip.
was your holidays, by the way? Like, I
I
know
spent
we're in
time
the
with the
middle of it.
girlfriend.
We're in the middle of it.
Yeah, we're just starting out actually.
Okay.
Um, but
I
it
mean,
was
I'm going
really
to
good.
I have to go to the site tomorrow. I told Lana to get a screening or two, and I see the messages. I see patient Ace blowing up on my phone, so I know she's working.
You share the screen. It's a secular
Festivus.
holiday.
Well, yeah.
It was
Festivus was conceived by author Daniel O'Keefe. Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, I got that mixed up with
the pagan holiday.
Yep.
I think the winter solstice.
Yeah.
But to me, these are my favorite ones. There's the aluminum Festivus pole, and there's the airing of grievances and the feats of strength.
At a Festivus for the rest of us. Okay, so that's not your
No, 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 no,
plug.
no,
Okay, I was about to say Darshan with the bars.
no. I'm not that smart. Let's not pretend to make me anything more than I am.
No, you're super sharp, man.
Oh yeah.
2024 has been a what kind of year? If you had to summarize it, 2024 has been a blank year.
A hard year, a
Hard?
difficult year. 2024 for me was a harder year. It was slower for me. It was. I feel like every year comes with its own unique challenges,
Hmm.
but this year had some fun, interesting ones. But I also got some peace in 2024 that I didn't have before.
Ah,
So
that's
there's
good.
that. Also, some health issues that popped up. So there's that.
Hmm.
Um, so it's kind of interesting and exciting and different and all that good stuff. How about you?
Well, on a personal level, yeah, and then we'll go industry wide, fill
Yeah,
in the blank. But for me, on a personal level, it's been amazing. Like,
I know.
business is booming. We're expecting a child. Like,
Hmm.
health has been great. Um, I cannot complain. Like, super grateful for everything. I do notice a bit of a slowdown on the studies, but I think it's temporary. I do see like I think that's starting to already pick back up. I'm seeing more study activity. So like the fall was kind of slow for new studies, and then personally for our site, the fall was like our transition from previously consistent studies to like brand new studies where we still have to figure out, and we're still figuring out a consistent recruitment plan. Um, so we just our site, it's year 3. We just shy of 1 million in gross, and our margins are like 70%. So we've done really well, and I think for that to continue, we'd have to just get a little more consistent with new therapeutic areas, which we are in the middle of doing right now. Um, so that's just me personally and my business. And then what about industry wide though? Like industry wide, 2024 has been a
shit show.
a shit show. I would agree on that as well. I think I agree with you on that assessment.
Yeah.
But the layoffs have started in 2023, really.
I didn't feel it as I mean, I think you're right. I think this did start in 2023, but the
Robert
full
Goldman
impact,
was calling it like
yeah,
2023, and we were like peak, research
yeah,
activity. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? But he was right. Like a few months later, it started showing signs, and then
yeah.
basically every CRO, massive layoffs.
The
I
question
think
is,
CROs are kind of cooked, no?
I feel like CROs are going to change. They are going to change their model. I don't know what it looks like,
Of course.
but
I don't think they know what it looks like either.
no. But whoever figured it out is going to have a leg up. I think the largest CROs are going to continue to have a problem. I think there's a lot of consolidation that happened, and I think now you're going to
Yeah.
start seeing people shed, which means there are going to be a lot of people come onto the market. The
I
question
got
that
I got some interesting things
go
to
ahead.
bring up on this show. I'll save it for 2025 outlook, but right now we're just doing still 24 wrap ups.
Okay.
But I got some good
Um,
stuff for
I think that 2024 was the year of pulling things together, and things were slow, things were difficult. But if you had a chance, and I don't know how you spent your time, um, one of the things I didn't do that I wish I did is try to pull things together to prepare for 2025 and 2026. It's a little hard to do that because you don't know what the market looks like,
Mhm.
but you meet some new interesting people. You start getting into new lines of business. For me, as is a bit of an open secret, like the firm's expanding, so I think that's going to be really exciting for 2025.
I
Um,
broke some of the news, I think.
you did, but that's why we come to the Safara podcast.
Well, that
It's
was
the
not
kind of
intentional
story.
on your end, but yeah, I mean, seems like you're building a great team.
I think I am. I think I'm getting to some really great places.
Hmm.
Um, I also think that 2020 also exposed some weaknesses in the industry. For example, I think that is a certain amount of frothing. Uh, I don't know if you saw this, but a bunch of companies, they had a bunch of money lying around. Instead of going and buying new companies, they started doing stock buybacks, which
Yeah,
means
the
that,
CROs are buying back their own shares too.
and I think CROs have to evolve. Pharma is going to do less evolving. It's going to have to do some straight up cleanups. But
Pharma's gonna, yeah, I mean, the innovation's coming from the biotech, like the small caps, and
you think?
I mean, they're the ones that get acquired. One of the CEOs, I think the Pfizer one a few years ago, right after COVID started settling down, he said, we're not really innovators anymore. Like,
Yeah.
we're basically investors
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
new platforms. So the innovation's coming from the small cap biotechs that can show some proof, maybe get an approval or two, and then get acquired.
I think I work with small cap biotechs and stuff, and I think
Mm,
that's great, but I don't think that's completely fair either. Because I
mm.
don't think the innovation comes from there. What I really think happens is you'll have funding that happens at the NIH level or whatever. An academic institution will come up with a proof of concept, which then gets converted into human studies for like phase 1, maybe phase 2A, if
Yeah,
you're really pushing phase 2B. I wouldn't call that innovation because I feel like the innovation got
Sure,
done at
sure. That's fair. The innovation is done. The academics, and I've been on the record saying this as much as I talk shit.
yeah.
Academia is very good for these proof of concept. I guess what the small cap biotechs do is they address it from the commercial applications, like what's the total addressable market? Do we
Right,
actually
right.
have, because you can innovate and just there's no market for it,
Oh, that
right?
happens to academia all the time. Like
Right, right.
they'll research for the sake of researching,
hmm
but some of that has to translate, and someone's got to go in and do that sifting.
You need a market clearinghouse for
Exactly.
the scalable innovations or the ones where there's actually a market for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And people are worried about NIH. We can get into that in 2025 outlook, but
yeah.
yeah, okay, fair enough. I think we both agree on the industry-wide assessment.
We usually tend to agree. I think we both see the same world. We just see it from different angles.
Mhm.
So I've never usually been surprised. And when we do disagree, that's even more fun because then I land up seeing something I hadn't thought of before, which I appreciate every single
Ah,
time.
thanks, man. Yeah, me too. You usually end up scaring the shit out of me about something, but then I still don't change. Maybe a
I
little.
know. Uh,
2025, man. There's a lot of anxiety around
yeah.
our space. I'm sure other spaces too. So we talked about the CROs. The
Yeah.
CRO model, I think it's cooked. Like they have to do something new. Even more so when you look at AI. And I know AI is in its infancy, but that's even more reason to be concerned if you're a CRO. Like at some point there's going to be a co-pilot AI that's going to augment the real CRA's jobs, right? Like
Mhm,
augment,
mhm,
but it goes further than that. So that's just one component. There's also the global outsourcing part, which
mhm,
has been going on.
mhm,
Like, yes, when they had layoffs here in the States, they actually at the same time were hiring in Latin America. And we've
mhm.
discussed this on our show as well. Like, English speaking, same time zone, whatever the case may be, better background. Oftentimes, it's medical background people they're hiring there, and they're getting rid of like maybe philosophy majors here, which I love philosophy, but it's kind of objectively better, I think. Until you get the experience, then you could argue it doesn't matter. But there's like a multi-pronged thing going pressure on the United States workforce, particularly when it comes to CROs.
So I literally, as you were talking, I started writing things that I can see that are going to change in 2025 because we're now in 2025 outlook, I think.
Yeah,
So I agree with you. I think CROs are going to evolve, but I don't think you're going to see the impact, the true impact in 2025. I think it's 26 or 27 you'll actually see that impact because
right.
CROs move slowly.
But we're gonna start seeing them turn the wheel.
Yeah, but I feel like it's like turning a big ship.
Sure,
You're
sure.
not going to see the true impact till you've gone 500
You won't
miles,
see the impact, but you will see the trajectory maybe
maybe. I
if
think
they're
the
honest about it.
yeah.
And I think
Um,
they're not being honest about AI.
I'm gonna get to AI in a second. I think the other thing that no one's talking about, I'm surprised by this, is if you're a large academic medical institution, your world just got changed. And I don't
Yeah,
know why no one's talking about it. ORI has completely changed how PIs need to work, and no one's talking about it. It's a completely different beast. Um, I think clinical trial agreements don't address it. Your agreements with the sponsors don't address it. Your agreements with the university don't address it. PIs could be in a lot of trouble if they have not thought through what they're signing up with in the context
university
of ORI.
PIs, right?
Exactly, university PIs. Um, in terms of data and AI, I think you're right. I think AI is going to change. I think there are people who are all, it's one of those things right now. You use the word AI, everyone's going to suddenly pretend that they know what they're talking about.
Right.
No one really knows what AI, including me, let's be clear. None of us know what AI really is capable of. We're in the early phases of trying to figure out what it means. So while you're trying to
Right.
figure out what the AI as it exists can do, they're coming up with new types of AI.
Right.
Um,
It's like
so
it's like the internet now,
yeah,
which is a like ubiquitous
yeah,
versus the
in
internet in like
99,
the late 90s
yeah. Yeah.
where every company needed to have an online strategy, right?
Right,
And
exactly.
now it's just like whatever, like that's the world you live in. So 20 years from now, although you can argue it's gonna happen faster because it's, I
Yeah.
think, a more transformative technology, particularly as it pertains to human beings and workforce.
So I think we're already talking about things like digital clones, and we're talking about
Digital twins, yeah,
yeah. So this idea of
in
what
silica.
studies do you really need?
Yeah,
Because I think a lot of the confirmatory, you might do confirmatory studies, but you may not do a lot of the proof of concept studies because you're like, I'll just do them in silica.
but the in order for that to get validated,
Hmm.
right? Because now everyone who runs a tech company in life sciences knows the number of validations you got to get through, the regulatory red tape. I mean, you know this better than almost anyone.
Well, I think you're right. However, the difference is that I'm not saying that they're stopping the studies and you wouldn't do the validation studies.
Mm.
I'm saying, let's say you had to do 10,000 studies to choose the 5 studies you want to do. Now you might not have to do the 9,995 studies. You're still going to do the 5. You may even do an additional 10 just to confirm, but the number of studies total went down.
So there's going to be a transitional period of a decade or more of status quo as far as studies are concerned
Right.
versus in silica.
Correct. What I think is going to add to this is going to be the fact that quantum technology is going to kick in.
Right.
And this idea that explore all these different options and opportunities that you simply couldn't before. Answers you didn't know the answers to will suddenly become so easily available. I think that's going to become the next phase. When I say next phase, I'm
Or you'll
talking
see
20.
new problem. You'll see new problems.
Correct. You'll see new, but that's you. That's where we want to be, right? True
Right. Right.
personalization.
Yeah.
Where we want to go. We'll deal with the problems too. We're going to see those problems and try to address them proactively, if at all.
Now, as far as the total addressable market, because for innovation, just for the sake of innovation, is at that point we're no different than the academic medical
Yeah.
center. So someone's gonna have to pay for this.
Unless have you heard of not only cures? It's something. There's a guy called David Fajgenbaum. Have you ever heard of him?
No, no.
So I don't. Just to be clear, I don't get paid by him or anything. I just think he's doing
Shout
really
out
good
David
work.
Fajgenbaum.
Yeah, he is a medical doctor out of the University of Pennsylvania. He had Castleman's disease, and he was dying from it. Like, it's a rare disease. He was dying from it. He literally had to invent his own treatment.
You brought this up on After
Previous
Dark.
podcast. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And he came up with a pre-existing medication
I see.
that can help cure it. And that's all he's doing. He's working, I think, with the
So he
uh,
researched the hell out of repurposing what's already out there.
correct,
And so what I think, pointing to is the AI is going to be able to do this
correct.
constantly, 24/7, and
Yep.
even on a quantum scale that we haven't
But
considered.
you're gonna start getting to true personalization. Like, maybe Dan Safera only needs 12.275 milligrams of metoprolol, while Darshan needs 20 milligrams of
Right, right,
metoprolol.
right. So, but this is a deflationary effect
It
because,
is a deflationary effect
but the technology is expensive.
for now.
I see. So who pays the bill in the meantime, or it's just a gradual transition?
It'll be a gradual transition, I think. I think there'll be an initial shock element, but Google
Uh-huh.
already owns that. China already owns that. Nvidia is trying to get into that space as well. So
I see.
everyone is trying to get into quantum computing. Uh,
Right. Google released that paper,
correct.
pretty important paper, which would take thousands of years to verify if someone actually wanted to
Yeah,
mathematically verify it. So we'll just take
it's
their word for
a
it.
billion words, years, yeah, something like
The
that.
same people that told us George Washington was black, like we'll
Right.
believe them at face value. Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff's coming faster than we think, and I think immediately, like you said, we won't necessarily see the effects of that maybe a decade out, but
I don't know if it's a decade. I think it's probably 4 to 5 years because I think things
for
are going.
because there's already in silica trials going on, I
Correct.
guess.
It's really, and it's not so much that they'll do the trials full blown. They'll just eliminate trials, so
Or
you'll
they'll
never
eliminate the
see them.
discovery aspect
Correct.
of preclinical, perhaps.
Correct. Or they might even do like they might say we're going to try this preclinical work instead of putting it into humans. I'm going to test this on 100 virtual digital clones. And okay, you know what? This is a really bad product. Let me try another version and another version, another version. Oh, this one works. Now put it into humans.
But for that to work well, and I guess with quantum computing it can, but for that to work well outside of the quantum tool framework, we don't even know all the variables. Like, we don't understand a lot of the variables that would go into the inputs.
And I think that's the other weird thing that's happening as AI is starting to use these tools. It's discovering connections we never saw. So I think there was this breast cancer or something like that where humans were looking for, and they're like, we can't. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But AI was pointing out things that later on got discovered to be true. So it's finding
like seemingly
connections.
unrelated things that are actually connected.
Exactly right.
Yeah, back to the topic of philosophical discussion we had on superpositions, where everything exists in like a probability cloud. I mean,
so let's discuss like global outsourcing. That's the other thing you talked about.
Yeah, because I mean, that's like
this
kind of stuff we're discussing more like years out, maybe decades.
Yeah.
What's happening tomorrow or already yesterday is this layoffs.
Exactly.
CROs need to pivot instead of like they've been buying sites, but now they're buying their shares back.
Yeah. I think you're going to see insourcing. I don't think you're going to see outsourcing. If Trump comes on, and well, Trump's coming on, it's not an if, it's a when. And when Trump comes on, he's incentivizing insourcing. So if that happens, what does that actually look like for drug discovery?
So a lot of gig economy.
Well, not necessarily even gig economy. I think those data centers they're trying to build in India and China and Indonesia and Brazil, they're going to go, no, don't send it globally. Do it in Iowa. Do it in Idaho. Yes, it costs you a little bit more, but if I put tariffs in there, I'll normalize it out. And that's what someone's going to start complaining about.
Now, what about at the small to medium-sized site model? I talked to way more private equity people in 24 than I care to to remember, but I mean, most of them are pleasant conversations.
Sure.
They said their own words, we're just getting started. Like 25 is going to be even more consolidation at the site level. And I've got a lot of thoughts on this, but I wanted to get your take on
I think
what the site market looks like.
I think the site market is going to be huge, except I think sites are going to make out like bandits. And the reason is most PE companies don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just sort of, they think they know what they're doing, which makes them dangerous. They just see huge numbers and they're going, I'll spend the money. You don't actually know what you're buying, do you? You don't know how these things get run. You don't know what the limitations are.
Well, in fairness to them, many of them hired former site people.
And the question is, it's the blind leading the blind in many cases.
Right, but I mean, some of these guys are sophisticated. Like I agree with you. Many of them are not.
Correct.
But there are some, and they're the more mature ones, that have, former president of this site network that's running.
No, I'll give you an example. You and I discussed corporate practice of medicine. And it's literally illegal for people to own this. I know people spending several $1 million to buy something that they literally cannot own.
Because they're a doctor in that state.
Because they're not a doctor.
Oh, because they're not. My bad. Yeah.
So you just spend millions to buy something you are legally prohibited from owning. What does that say? I don't care how. To me, it speaks to how smart the site owner is and how dumb the PE company is. All they're looking at are the dollars.
Most likely that site owner is not a doctor either.
And that's my point. So he's smart to get rid of it.
I see. So it's a game of hot potato.
It is a game of hot potato.
You think the Fed's going to crack down on that?
I don't think they're going to crack down on it right now, but it's one of those things. It's like the opioid crisis, right? Nothing happens for decades until someone gets hurt, and then they go, "Oh, time to crack down."
So you're saying these clinics that are owned by non-MDs, because in some states I know it's like
only allowed
conflict where it is owned by an MD, and then some states where it's not.
Correct.
So you can't have it both ways. Our site is owned by MDs and non-MDs. They're all
And that's allowed in certain states. Like you have to have a certain majority or a certain
Yeah.
percentage or whatever it is. Um, but the point that goes along with it is, and it's not just this area, right? It's going to be stem cell clinics are going to have the same exact problem.
right.
You're going to have
Or they start doing nutraceuticals like RFK
nutraceutical.
wants,
Correct.
peptides like our boy
Peptides.
RFK wants.
Right. And I think that's what's going to be the problem. It's like you company, private equity company, VC company want to get into space that's innovative. Quite honestly, I think they just want to hopefully change the world, which is a good thing to have.
But you don't think those guys with all their millions of dollars don't have good attorneys, like letting them
Yeah.
know, hey, this is
Yeah.
not legal, or
Correct. That's exactly what I'm saying.
they ignore it.
They either ignore it, they think it's a low risk, or they simply aren't aware of it. Because I've
Have
spoken
you,
to
have
former
you
attorneys.
been asked about this?
I spoke to a lawyer 30 minutes ago. Amazingly smart lawyer. We spent an hour going, I think you're wrong, Darshan. I was like, talk to me why. By the end of it, she's like, I think you're right.
About this topic
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
in certain states?
Yeah.
Which states do you remember off the top of your head?
Well, it's blatantly illegal in Texas.
Oh, so an MD must own a
Correct.
clinic.
It
in
literally
Texas.
says, yeah. Texas specifically goes out and says clinical research is the practice of medicine.
Oh, so they put clinical research.
Yeah. They literally write the word research in the definition.
Shout out to all the site owners in Texas. Come to save our sites.
Come to save our sites.
One of our regional meetups. Our next regional meetup, I think, is going to be in Texas.
That'd be a good place to have them. Texas has some great laws and stuff, and it's a it's very busy for clinical research. It's right.
Oh yeah. Dallas, Houston, so many sites out there.
And the best part is it's very fixable. That's the thing. You can fix this problem very simply using the MSO model.
MD as a
owner? The MD does the clinical part, and the research site does everything that's research related. It fixes
Wait, but if the MD does the clinical part, the MD has to be the owner too, no? In Texas,
only off the clinic, not off the research part.
I see. Oh, the MD has to be the owner of the clinic where the visits are done.
Correct. The MD can do the medical part. That's the rule.
Right, but
everything
that's
that's non-medical. Correct. They're basically a PI. So anything that's not the practice of medicine, whether it's scheduling things, billing, getting the money, handling FDA inspections, making sure that the sponsor's notified, all that's not done by the MD. That's owned by the site.
Right, but the problem is that's just considered the admin aspect. But
that's where you put the value, and that's the part that gets sold. And that's the
aspect that makes money is seeing the patient.
But what you do is you structure it so that all that money, all that value is in the MSO.
Sure, but the MD. So in the case of Texas, for example, and to Maria, yes, come on down. I love that profile.
She's on the baseball. The Texas.
That's Rangers, world champs.
Is that right? Yeah, I'm not even going to pretend to know.
They play baseball. That's a baseball.
That's I know that's a baseball ball. So
okay, I'm confused, but I'm not in Texas. But I talk to Darshan.
Yeah, feel free to reach out. But my point is, I think that it's going to be okay for several years. But if you're in it for the long haul and you aren't in the middle of playing hot potato, you want to structure this properly so that you don't have issues.
The chicken potentially come home to roost.
Correct.
At some point.
Correct. And you don't want that. You want to be held holding that bag.
Right. Well, everything, one of the things we teach site owners at SOS is get used to change, like every year.
Exactly.
So here's one I'm going to bring up and related to AI. So these AI, as they're getting better and more advanced, right? They're using more compute to do all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
We're both long NVIDIA, probably for this reason, amongst others. We're scratching the surface. It's almost possible now to eliminate a developer and create a line of code and make something. But let's say, for the sake of argument, by the end of 25, the AI is sophisticated enough to basically program some cloud-based application.
Sure.
No?
Okay. I don't think it's going to be there yet. I think we're probably about 3 to 4 to 5 years away from that. But we're getting there faster.
You think in Silica comes faster than this?
No, I don't think either one comes fast enough to be. I think because I don't think we as human beings will trust the system. So even if the system's there, I don't
Yeah.
think we as human beings would trust it.
But if the price is low enough, I mean, it's going to be effectively free.
Yeah, but would you trust it?
I don't know. Like, eventually, it's
And that's my
all
point.
these things.
Eventually,
Yeah.
it's
All
like
these things
ATM.
require, like, any change requires some leap of faith,
Correct.
right? And then others see it happening, working, then it becomes best practice. Then we talk about it at SOS, then more people do it, and then they write a white paper, and
Right.
then basically it's the new standard. And then the FDA, like 5 years after all this,
Yeah.
writes a guide and hey, it's
Yeah.
okay.
To me, I think it's like ATMs. It's very simple. Like
Mm.
at some point, ATMs became a thing. And the first 50 people used the ATM. People were like, are you insane? Why would you use the ATM? Just go inside and get your money.
Yeah,
At some point, everyone goes, it's just easier to use the ATM.
right,
It's the same exact thing. Change is difficult.
right.
In the
Same
same way,
argument, buying things online in the 90s.
correct.
Why would you put your
Exactly right.
credit card on the internet?
Exactly
That's,
right. Exactly right. Same
yeah,
exact thing. But it
okay.
takes a while.
But
So
it's
even if
taking,
the technology is there, I don't think we as human beings are just going to trust it.
sure, okay. And that may be good to hear, reassuring by some of the vendors in our space, because I have a theory, and I don't know if we'll start seeing it in 25, maybe like you said, 3 years down the road. Sites, especially with the consolidation and more money behind it, like these PEs are already talking, well, what's our core, like what's our differentiator? Can we somehow streamline the workflow? Can we, you're gonna have
And
co-pilots.
Safari is the differentiator. How do they
Sure,
not see this?
sure. Well, no, they see that, but I'm not scalable and I'm not for sale. But
Just to be clear, I am for sale.
hold on. Oh, Maria. Oh, Maria switched to LinkedIn so we could see her professional profile.
Oh, there you
This is
go.
a great conversation. Switch to LinkedIn. You guys are spot on. Side note, yes, that's a structure from the Texas Ranger Stadium, of course. I was in Dallas when the Rangers won the World Series. I was at an investigator meeting
Is
in
that
Dallas.
this year?
That was in October of 24.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
They beat the Arizona Diamond. I was actually rooting for Arizona, but
I was
I
there
like
as we
Texas.
lost.
Nah, I didn't care too much. My point is, one of my predictions, and maybe you're convinced me that it's
Yeah.
a little further out than I thought. All these tool sites you're using, especially because of consolidation, these PEs are going to be pushing for it.
Yeah.
I've already had talks with tech entrepreneurs saying,
Yeah.
hey, what can we build? What can we build? They're going to start building customized tools for sites. You're
Mhm.
going to have AI able to do this soon. You're not going to need a consultant. You're going to
Yeah.
have AI. Now, the validation and all that regulatory nonsense, that's for you. That's where Darshan comes in. But
Sure.
at
Sure.
some
Sure.
point,
Let's
it
ignore that.
can get done. It can
Yeah.
get done too with a good
Absolutely.
attorney.
I expect that to happen.
So, sites don't need developers anymore. Sites are going to have tools.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love Creo. I love my own Patient Ace in Nado. All
Mhm.
these tools that
Mhm.
actually make money either indirectly from sites or directly from sites. You're going to have sites building these tools essentially for free.
Mhm.
Like you can make your own e-source at that
Sure.
point.
Sure.
So why use Creo? Why use Patient Ace if
Standardization.
it's just coding, right?
Standardization. And not
So
everyone's
what's
going
the
to give the
missing?
API. Go ahead.
So what's the bridge? How do we fix that then? Or is that not a fixable thing?
No, I think it is flexible. I think in the end you'll land up developing some level of um, security that enables almost free association with these APIs.
Or what about
Um,
like an open source e-source? That's like
so I think you might do an open source e-source that might be, but I think the cost of doing that is still going to be at least several hundred days to put something like that together. So someone's got to still make that investment. Even if AI helps the process along significantly, in the end, someone's going to go, well, I still need a lawyer to look at this. I still need
sure.
I need people who use this software that I haven't thought of. I need a Dan Safara to look at this thing going, what does it look like in reality? And some people are just not in that business. Some people are going, I just want to run my site.
Right. Right. But I think these capabilities are going to keep the tech vendors honest as far as their own pricings are concerned.
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why I don't think so.
Okay.
It's a great question, right? But I think the reason is they're gonna go. You now realize how difficult this is, and you don't want to sit and maintain this thing because you realize all the security loopholes and the openings that you create. Now you know why it's expensive. I'm going to charge you a premium because it's few. Unlike hospitals, where you have volume. Sites don't have volume, nowhere close to the type of volume you might be talking. So now you're talking about custom solutions for small problems, and
Right.
that's where you make a lot of money.
Which is what I'm being asked a lot these days from
Correct.
PE people and tech people. Like, hey, what's like your top 3 biggest
Correct.
challenges?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? I have like 3,000. What do you mean
Right.
top
Right.
3?
Oh,
That's
they're
just
really
something I've
going.
had on
What can I build that you'll pay for? It's really the question they're asking.
Yeah, but yes, but those questions have become more sophisticated lately.
Oh yeah.
And the surprising part is what can we build that almost for free? Like cost is almost going to be negligible other than the regulatory aspects, which is where the price I think comes in. I think is what you're alluding to as well.
I
Because the
think
actual capabilities of it is not going to be expensive.
I
It's
think
going
the
to be the
coding.
regulatory.
I think it's the oversight you're not paying enough, and I don't mean just from the regulatory perspective. I think, for example, you there there are things you do I literally cannot replicate. And what do I mean by that? I can tell you what a site's supposed to run like, but you know what a site runs like. And that fundamental difference, if I came to you with a solution, and this is what tech vendors do all the time, where they'll come to you with a solution going, here's the solution for all your problems. You're like, that's not what my reality is.
Mhm.
You think that's my reality and it's wrong. It needs your input. So
Or
every
you think that's my reality, but it's a very small part of it,
exactly,
almost negligible part.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's where they still need a Dan's input. They still need Darshan's input. They still need Chris's input. Like name 15 people who are
Sure,
all so,
sure.
and then that has to all be reconciled, put together, and you create a compromise solution that reflects all these decisions and discussions.
But wouldn't sites just evolve and have these people as part of their site and say, hey, especially if they're PE owned,
It's
hey,
not.
we're gonna put a data regulatory guy there, like to
Let me do
watch
a really simple thing. How many sites are going to go reinvent Excel? No one.
nobody. Nobody.
Exactly. And the reason no one's going to do that is because you know what? Open Office exists, but I prefer the stable solution that Excel offers me.
Sure,
I'll pay the
sure.
money.
But that's because it's like 300 a year. You're
Okay.
talking about some of these other tools. You're getting into like 30,000, 50,000, hundred
But who's
thousand
paying
a
that?
year.
Who's paying that? It's not you.
No, it's the sites are
Sponsor.
paying for it. No,
Sites are paying 30, 50,000.
depending on volume, and yeah, sure.
I mean, you're talking about larger, much larger sites at that point.
My own site pays just for Creo, like let's say two to 3,000 a month because it's based on patient activity and stuff.
So let's say 3,000. So it's 36,000 based on patient activity.
If we keep growing, that's going to be 50, you know, and you pay it. But I think that there's a cap on
So
the revenue
let me
these
ask
or
you a
the
different
margin.
version of that question, though.
Yeah.
Would it also goes down depending on patient activity? Would
Well, it's a
you?
deflationary force. Like I think these
No,
things make everything cheaper.
no, but I'm asking a different version of this question.
Uh,
The other way to ask the same question is: at what point do you not want to deal with it? So if you told me that for
mhm.
$2,000 you don't have to deal with creating your own EMR system, I'd be like, yeah, take it. I don't want to deal with it.
For 2,000, yeah, EMR we're not getting,
Right.
but that's not Creo. Creo's not
Okay.
doing that.
No, my point is there are going to be different solutions. Each one
Sure.
will solve its own problem.
Right, right.
For $2,000, you don't have to deal with all this. Creo's going to take care of it.
Correct. But there does come a point in
Yeah,
every
100.
vertical
Yeah,
where that vendor can no longer, they're basically handcuffed.
yeah.
Hey, we got to be very mindful about raising
Yep.
prices.
And
So
that
it's like not an attractive business necessarily anymore because you're not
I
early.
hear
All
you.
the
No,
beta's
I'm hearing
gone.
you.
All
I'm
the
hearing
beta's
you.
gone.
I think that comes from market forces, and I think you are the exception, not the rule. And what I mean by that is, even if I'm like, I've coded before, I've created software before, and I'm going back like 10, 15 years. And the truth is, I've made websites and all that stuff. If someone told me today, go figure out how to make another tool, no, I'm not interested. I think my skills are better used somewhere else.
But if your AI agent is good enough and you're paying what 100 a month for that AI agent,
but you wouldn't
Figure
pay
it
it.
out.
You might like just Chat GPT. They just made a $200 a month option. Now, if you're
True.
going to use hardcore the way you're talking about, I'm making this up, but 50,000 lines of code, 100,000 lines of code. It's not going to be it's not going to be $200. It might be $2,500. So now you're
Well,
just,
they charge based on tokens, but as long as
I
you
know.
don't
I know.
token,
It depends on what you're doing. It depends on which version
yeah,
you're using and stuff like that. But the point I was making was the other costs will start equalizing out. And you'll go, you know what? Less headache, and I don't have to deal with this. Yeah, fine. Just do it.
I see. Well, the alternative argument to that was like paper is free, yet people still use eSource.
Right.
I mean, that's the inverse of that argument.
Yeah.
But you can get me marginal benefits of switching. Like you can prove, hey, we make less mistakes. We actually can enroll more. It makes auto scheduling easier. Like all the stuff I love about Creo,
Yeah.
which is nice, and you keep paying for it. And they were enjoying the time where they could keep raising prices. But I think this other force coming here
Yeah.
with AI kind of doing everything passively. And
I think you're trusting AI too much. I love AI, and I'm with you, and I
sure,
want to believe you, but I'm not sure I agree with you
but it's
because
potential. It's potentially a threat to these companies.
I think you want it to be a threat to these companies. I mean, I'd be all for AI suddenly doing everything. It's like saying AI can now make my dinner for me. I guess it could.
Well, Optimus. I mean, just give Elon enough time. He wants an
Right.
Optimus in every house.
He does. And that's my point. I think that, yes, but they're just, am I going to sit and create the next Optimus for myself? No, I'm not
No,
going to bother.
no. But if it doesn't take your energy to do it, right? You're just effectively paying tokens for this thing to work 24/7 to figure it out. At some point, it will figure out something. Like it's like investing basically in your future.
Right.
And then when it does, now you can enjoy all the marginal benefits of whatever that may be. And especially it's scalable at the site network level. That's all I'm saying. Because these things all have to like work together for it to
They
make
do.
sense.
They do. I'm curious what Maria's comment is.
Yeah, it may not work like make sense for one site, but if you're a site
Yeah.
network with 100 sites,
Well, now you're talking a
I
different
mean the
language at
shit
that
gets
point.
a little
Okay.
more interesting,
Right,
right?
right. I think that has to be volume. That has to be scale. That's
But
when it
that's
starts making more
happening
sense.
too. Consolidation's happening. Objectively happening.
No. I'm agreeing with you. I'm trying to see. I'm trying to go. Is it like CROs where they go? I feel like site networks have been in and out of favor so often. I don't even trust them anymore because they want to come in, but every 3 to 5 years they self combust and then they come up with
Yeah,
a
and
new
you're hearing
version.
anecdotal from
Yeah,
monitors. I'm so glad you're not a site network.
right. Exactly. They call themselves something different every single
Sure,
iteration, if you
sure.
will.
And with AI, they'll give them green light to call themselves
Correct.
something completely new.
Correct.
Excel is a root tool that's used to build other platforms. Sites will need a platform to call back on if they are not profitable and have to scale back. So AIs will be used to create the in-house.
I have no idea what that means. Sorry, Maria. I don't know where you're going with that. So, care to
Well,
explain?
the AI is getting good at like building off of Excel too. Like
Is that
language
what you're saying?
coding is just a language. You're saying coding is a language, and essentially Excel has always been the litmus test, even before AI,
Uh huh.
of like justification for why you're going to start a new tech company. Like what it
Really?
all comes back to, yeah, what I always ask them, I stopped recently, but what I always used to ask them is it better than Excel? Like, hey, this can store your study leads, this and that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
is it
yeah.
better than Excel? And I think Maria's point is with AI, you can get Excel to do sophisticated things that you maybe couldn't do
Oh, that's
yourself.
what she means. Oh,
That's what I think she means. It could be something else she means, but there's a lot of interpretations.
yeah.
Maria, shout out to Maria, man, by the
I know,
way.
right?
You're very involved. Chris
Love
White, welcome. Chris White's doing some crazy shit in this picture.
it.
That's some in silico things, no?
Chris is great. Chris is like, he's a patient advocate. So kudos to Chris.
Okay, okay. Shout out to
Um,
Chris White. This is the first time I see you on, but welcome. So I don't know. That's my whole point. Yeah, she said correct. This
no,
she
I think that's an interesting. If I'm repeating what you just said back, you're saying that I love the way you phrase it, which is why is it better than Excel? If that's what
yeah.
the point is,
If I'm gonna switch and pay more
yeah,
and train all my staff to use this shit now, like, is it better than Excel? Chris always asks this. Chris loves Excel.
Sauber.
Yeah, so whenever a new budget solution comes around,
Yeah.
is it better than Excel? Why can't I just use Excel? Like CRAs ask the same thing too. They make all these fancy trackers. Well, oh, you could use this tool, cloud based, blah blah blah. Well, is it better than Excel? I don't know. It depends on who's creating the Excel, but now the AI can do it. I think actually today the AI can do it. We don't need to wait,
Yeah.
2 years. The AI can do your Excel as fancy as you want right now.
Yeah, I mean, Copilot. Apparently, Copilot's a bit of a disappointment, though, from what I hear.
I haven't used it yet. I haven't
I
played around with it.
I play with ChatGPT, the paid version, and
Yeah,
I
I
don't
have
know
that
why.
in Grok. I have that in the Grok, and I start using Grok a little more because I think they're getting better.
You think?
Yeah, Elon said like every new iteration's like closing the gap on ChatGPT, and the other one's the Google one too.
I feel like Google. I really want to like Google as my thing. My problem is, I feel like they're falling so far behind at this point. Like trying to compare. Like, Google invented the whole damn thing. So to me, the fact that they're so far behind sucks.
Yeah, but it's
But
an interesting world we're gonna, enter here, 2025. I think 2024 was also the year that AI became a household thing. Like, you don't sound like a nerd talking about AI.
you
Like,
think we
it's
you think we sound like nerds right now?
no. I think we saw if we would have had this discussion in 2022, yeah, we would have sounded like nerds. In
Okay.
2024, 2025, we don't sound like nerds. This is a topic of conversation now. Like, it's become practical to have these talks, not just superfluous.
I was just in a conversation, probably about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and someone was like, "Social media is how people should market." I'm like, "Wait, I'm sorry. This is 2024. We're having a conversation." So there'll
Yeah,
always be
people are
laggards.
still there's always lag, and in our industry, maybe the most,
Yeah.
and maybe for good reason. I don't
Maybe
know.
but what do you see as the big thing that's going to happen in 2025 that did not happen in 2024?
Well, more consolidation at the site level.
But
Like
that
it's
that's
gonna
but that did not happen in
that
2024.
did not happen. Yeah. You might see it might be the first year in a long time, like in 4 years. Well, you see less studies than the previous year.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, I think sites are gonna have to be diverse as far as their therapeutic areas are concerned. Like we've had to. I would love to get more obesity studies. They're just so damn competitive. Like even though we've done well on the
Yeah.
ones we had to learn how to pivot into psych, into respiratory, into derm, just to create revenue, right? While we're waiting on like those home run studies. So I think that's the big thing. Like sites have kind of been spoiled as of
Right.
late. Like, hey, any study you want, it's here. There's more demand. There's more demand than there are sites. I think that's and as there's more consolidation happening, like you're getting money thrown into business development where you have people whining and dining sponsors like they used to do with CROs, that they still do with CROs, which normal sites don't do that. We don't wine and dine. I've never wined and dined the sponsor in my life, maybe. That's not true, but like consistently wine
Right.
and dine. No,
Right.
like we don't have someone that does that regularly, but now they do. And
Smaller sites?
no, but the site networks
Yeah.
have these
That's
BD
interesting.
people. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be a little bit harder to get studies, I think. And you're gonna have to. You can't be stubborn and say no. I just only do these kind of studies because you may not always get them. So that's what I think we're
So
gonna
in
see.
2025, what are points of differentiation that smaller sites will have to distinguish from each other and from larger sites?
Diverse patients. So that's huge.
But I
There's
feel like that's something that everyone says even today. So it's not
That's of course
really.
it's everyone that says, but no one's really delivering it at scale,
No?
or else it wouldn't continue to be a problem in the industry.
No, but I mean, but it's sort of like saying we're the most hardworking people. Like, I'm sure everyone says that. Or we're the smartest. Yeah, I'm sure you think that. Like, what is it that someone can demonstrate up front?
Diversity up front, you can't unless you have KPIs like to show, hey, from our past studies, here's what we do,
Sure.
and it's not just bullshit numbers. You're actually showing them screenshots or the CROs verifying it because they've given your site this study. I mean, I don't think that's the same as saying something subjective like we work hard and
Yeah.
play hard. No, we enroll like we're in a predominantly Hispanic area.
Right.
You want Hispanic patients. You don't have to be a rocket scientist or use AI to figure out we're going to enroll Hispanic patients.
Here's a question: do you think that site report cards will become more fashionable?
I think the CROs are going to try to do whatever they can to stay relevant. I
Okay.
don't think if sponsors start doing it, yes. I don't see sponsors doing that.
But you don't think like a industry, like across sites, going, you know what, we're going to self-assess, we're going to self-police, we're going to show you our results. So that level of transparency.
I think in NATO, there's vendors that kind of niche vendors like in NATO that kind of do that already without giving a
Really?
actual
Okay.
score, but they have metrics on the sites, and the more studies they get. Creo also does this. Creo can do
Interesting.
this.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Creo can show a sponsor like, hey, you know what? These are our sites, and
Yeah.
we can show you like demographic breakdown, whatever you want. So data is already there. So I don't think there's gonna be a need for this, like a credit score for sites maybe or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
I know there's been groups trying, but I think ultimately it's a grift, especially when it boils down to diversity. It becomes a grift. The grift that keeps on giving.
But in the end, I feel like it's like any other grift, right? It came out of people having a need to be able to tell two different sites from each other.
But
How
that
do I?
data's already there.
That's
That's
the
my point.
interesting part. I didn't realize that that data was easily
That
accessible. So
data,
it may exist. It's just easily accessible.
yes, and no site will opt out and say no, Creo, don't show sponsors like my numbers. They're all going to do it. Same thing with Inato. I think actually on Inato, it's you can't opt out. It's part of the terms of service. Like
You
you have,
cannot.
I don't think you can.
Okay.
Shout out to Inato. They're one of my sponsors too. But, I should know their terms of service by
Why?
this point.
I wouldn't, and I'm not. I'd be a lawyer. I'm not their lawyer, but
Oh, okay. I'll have you read it later. You
sure.
should get an auto profile. Start a
Yeah.
virtual site, man.
Virtual service provider. I didn't even know that's a thing. I'd do that.
And a fractional service providers too.
There
That's
you
going to
go.
be a big thing. I think that's going to be something happening in 25 we haven't seen. Like, and the gig economy is
Yeah.
going to take off because of out of necessity. Like all these academic people that lost their jobs, all these
Yeah.
CRO people that lost their jobs, they're going to have to start improvising and figuring out
I have
how
people
to
like that
help.
working with me right now. Started
So
actually.
you see,
So yeah, 100%. And they're kind of finding their feet below them right now, and I'm
yeah,
excited for them. But I think that everyone's sort of learning that you can't depend purely on your W-2. You may need
yeah,
to augment and de-risk. But as I'd mentioned before, I think there are some IP concerns that come in. I think there are some non-compete concerns that come in. As long
for
as
sure.
you have individually reviewed that, you can't expect the employer to do that or the consulting company to do that. But
But
you
at the
need,
individual level, right?
yeah,
I mean,
correct,
forget all the legal stuff.
yeah.
At the individual level, you cannot stay stagnant in
Correct.
your career development. Like
And
that's
that's the question, though, right? I feel like this generation of kids, for lack of a better term, they're looking for stability. Because I think we,
they're
the
looking for like
Gen X
work
and
life
millennials,
balance, and they're
yeah.
looking for, and this gets into the debate. I don't know if you want to get into it. Well, let's go through these comments real quick. These are big ones. These are like Kindle books. I agree with Dan 100%. Thank you. We're done with this comment. Uh,
To
I've
be fair,
worked
I
in
agree with that 100% as well. So there's that.
I've worked in VA research and for nonprofit research. Software platforms have to pass stringent security requirements to be accepted versus nonprofits look for what's the cheapest platform to implement, especially if you have staff turnover, EMR integration. We need more of these combos. And then Chris White, love watching this. As a patient, I never understood what is out there and how to find it. In the last couple of years, I've dove in head first, learning the business aspect that most patients have no clue about. Understanding how it all works is helping me help those that reach out, what to do, where to go, how to find it. I have patients asking me to be a non-medical consultant. Yeah, so essentially like a patient advocate.
Yeah.
Um, and that has been filling my calendar. Because of this, I'm having to create a business model, and then it
I
drops
think
off.
working
But
on the second part of the write up, but yeah.
no, but and there's organizations doing this too, like employing
You
patient
and I just had this
advocates.
conversation before we went live.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Correct. And there's people doing this like as a scalable model. Dr. Renarda Jones, who I just interviewed a few days ago in San Diego,
Yeah.
Dr. Ren. she's doing this. They have patients. They have like a buddy system where, like, hey, it's your first screening visit. We're gonna have a buddy go with you to your visit. This is like a nonprofit organization that joins patients, advocates for them, awareness raises awareness for clinical trials. You're feeling a little anxious because it's your first visit. We're gonna go with you. We'll have a buddy go with you. They advocate for them. As somebody who's having to deal with pregnancy for the first time through my
Yeah.
wife,
Yeah.
if you we have a doula. The
Yeah.
doula is a de facto advocate. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
don't let them tell you this, and that, because this is what they're going to try to do, because their business model is this, and that. As soon as they get a green light, they're going to want to do this, but that's not necessarily in your best interest. Again, it's not medical advice, but here's what I think. I mean, that's an advocate. You need that. And you feel more empowered when you go in next time because you research it and then you're like, oh, she was right. Like this is actually the case. So I think clinical research, you're going to need those advocates as well. And we're starting to see that. So shout out to people like Chris White for doing this. Man, this was a good convo.
Yeah, but I love talking to you. We actually had a full half hour to an hour long conversation before you even started. So
Yeah, man. The we all need healthcare advocates,
yeah, but to be
especially in the world
fair,
of health insurance and medical coverage and all that stuff, which is
we should do one on like how do you start a clinical trial site from a legal angle? Like what are the things that
from a
getting your EI?
legal angle.
You
You're
actually
going to
talked about
scare
it.
the shit out of everyone. No one's going to want
Well,
to start a site.
I'm talking about what you're talking about, which is getting your EIN, getting your health insurance, get like all of
We
that
don't have
stuff.
it. I wish we had one for YCT. I wouldn't have this issue. It's one of those things where, like, are we stable enough? Well, let's give it one more year. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
ultimately we will have one.
But I think that's the hard part, isn't it? I feel like
Mhm.
there. Do you set up a 401k? Like all these things where you're going. I just want to be. First of all, I don't think you should tie health insurance to where you work. I think that's crap because the fact is,
But like
it really
80% of people get
disincentivizes.
their
Right,
health from their employer.
and that's my point. How do you encourage entrepreneurship if you can't leave your employment?
Oh, you're saying like to encourage the employees to go out on their own.
I'm saying that don't tie employment to health insurance.
For
Let
whose
people
benefit? Or
for no one. My point is, you were telling me about how expensive it is for you to get health insurance to just cover the basics,
correct,
effectively catastrophic health insurance,
correct,
and you can't get it, and that's because the way it's set up right now is that your employer pays a certain percentage, you
correct,
pay the other
correct,
percentage, all that good stuff.
correct.
Problem with that is let the employer maybe pay you and you go get the health insurance. And the idea would be it drops everyone's costs
But
together.
everyone would have to do this at scale for that to work.
Correct. You'd have to. And I think that's where Trump can come in, Musk can come
Mm.
in and change how health insurance works.
Have they indicated they're going to look at this or
No,
no?
no one said that. But I don't understand how you can be so for entrepreneurship but not address the biggest behemoth in the room, which is health
Crisis.
insurance.
Well, health insurance is a big one, but also our federal deficit is very damn important. Like we're bleeding money at just about every
But I
department.
don't think this addresses it. This has no impact on your federal deficit. So I'm not talking about.
No,
I'm
but
thinking,
they're all in on that right now before they could get to this other
but I don't
stuff.
think it changes anything, right? So I'm not saying that they're going to do it because I said anything. But my point is, if you just unlink those two things and you say we create a national group, if you want to be part of the national group, here's the cost of every person, and you haven't changed anything. You've just basically enabled a national group. At that point, Dan Safari can say, you know what? I want to be able to give my family health insurance. And just
Right.
because I'm not part of another group, your health insurance costs are through the roof. Now you get to be part of a group and your costs come lower because
Right, because essentially you're paying like 24,000 a year
yeah,
just to have it,
correct,
and then maybe another 20,000 a year depending on who in
correct,
your family needs to get what. If
correct,
at the low end, at the
right,
like good health
correct,
strata, right? God
correct,
forbid, and you have some health issues.
exactly right,
Now you're in the six figures, and how
correct,
many entrepreneurs make six figures when they're starting out? Like no one.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So I think so. You can still address the federal deficit and come back to this problem later on, but I think you need to incentivize innovation and incentivize entrepreneurship.
Well, and I
Uh,
think this is the right regime to do that.
Well, we'll find out if they think so, right?
Well, they're definitely there. I would put my money on them versus the alternative.
To me, I'm not. I put the money on neither. Everyone's incentivized to just let things lie because it's the third rail.
Yeah.
I hope people do, but I mean, I was glad when Obama came out and got rid of things like lifetime caps and got rid of things like pre-existing conditions.
Sure.
And now I wish that
Or they
Trump
could
comes
deny
in.
you.
Yeah. And now I wish that Trump comes in and says PBMs, we're going to have to get you under control. And I'm going to have to make healthcare easier to access. And research maybe, so we'll cover research in a specific way, which there's some conversation around it.
Well, there is an alternate universe where research is a care option, which I know people
Oh, yeah.
either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
I don't think research is a care option. There is an alternate universe where that does factor in here.
So it does. And that creates all kinds of other issues.
Well, yeah, of course, any change is going to create all kinds of issues.
Sure. My point is, I don't think you should. Research as a care option by default includes the fact that research is not a care option. It is still practice of medicine, but it's not necessarily a care option because if
Right.
you were, you don't have to follow a protocol anymore. Assuming you still followed the research as a care option, I, as a patient, should not have to worry that you're following the protocol over my interests.
Oh, of course.
Except that's what you'd have to do. Like, you got to pick one side,
So more regulation, basically.
which you don't want either.
Well, good thing I'm not a politician, man. Chris White says, by the way, anything else you want to discuss there, Sean?
No, I think we need to do these more often. We tried to do this one. We had to reschedule a few different times.
Yeah. I mean, it was the holidays and whatnot.
Yeah.
Patients want and trust other patients. These micro support groups is what is leading and driving engagement, is why I do what I do. I have no COIs. We're an influence culture, and I lived an experience. Testimonial hold more weight as a peer-to-peer. Keep kicking, y'all. Right. Amen on that
Amen.
PBM reform. On the Hill. Wow. You ever been to the Hill, there, Sean? Like,
I've
in a
seen
formal
the Hill.
manner?
No, I haven't actually had to advocate on the Hill. I'd actually have to register as a.
You haven't got your Craig Lipset on yet?
I do not. I do not.
Shout
As a
out to
lawyer,
Craig
I have to
Lipset.
register as a, what do they call it?
Lobbyist?
Lobbyist. So I don't want
Would
to
you
go
ever
down
get into lobbyists?
No,
I think you should become a lobbyist and start a channel.
Start a channel.
The lobbyist guru. Demystifying lobbyists. You know how many people hate lobbyists?
I do, but I don't even think that's fair.
There you go. You should start this channel. A new pod.
I think I'm always for the other side, which worries me. I don't know if I necessarily agree with all of my own statements. I sometimes just want to see how the other side reacts to another perspective.
Who's the
Like,
other
as long
side?
as we've all thought through them. In this case, like lobbying, where you say, do you know how many people hate lobbyists? And you're right, they do.
Yeah.
The interesting part about it is, are they right to hate lobbyists? Because lobbyists aren't evil. They're giving voice to one argument. And there are lobbyists on the other side.
Well, lobbyist is a manifestation of incentives, and you have to manifest it out in some way currently with human beings. So that's what lobbyists do.
Yeah. So,
but that leads to regulatory capture and all kinds of nasty things. It does. Anything that can does. Study enough philosophy, you'll see that.
That's an interesting statement. Anything that can does. I have to think about that.
That's the purpose. Doesn't mean it's right. It just
I don't even know if I agree with it. Like, I see the logic and it's very tempting, but I think there are lots of things that can happen. The does, I think, comes down to what the timeline is.
Okay, asterisk, if given enough time.
If given enough time. Okay, I'll agree with that statement then.
Okay.
Yeah.
New book coming out 2025. Anything that can does.
That's a good line. That's a good title.
I'm gonna trademark it. Can you help me?
Sure.
Like, subscribe, comment, share. If we don't see you again, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Darshan.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas as well.
You got New Year's plans, or just chilling over there in Philly?
I'm probably gonna land up hanging out with some friends, hoping that I get to see Dan Safara in the next year. I thought I'd get to see you this year, but that didn't work out. Yeah, I'm hoping for.
We'll see in OKC.
Oh, I'm gonna see you for SOS anyways.
Yeah, right here, March 2020.
But
SOS.
I'm hoping to see you in addition to that, if I can get that client.
Come on down.
Come on down.
Okay. Everybody go follow Darshan. right
Thank you,
now.
sir.
His LinkedIn's underneath. Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye.